everyone, my name is Josh and you're watching Josh Reviews. Today we're going to be reviewing my very own custom Spider-Man 3 Tobey Maguire Symbiote suit. Yes, this is the one and only. I mean, other people have done it, but this is mine, so it's unique. I've been wanting to have a symbiote suit figure ever since the movie came out in 2007, and to my disappointment, the figures that were released after that movie were really horrible, and I just wish they used the Spider-Man 2 figures and just changed the logo and the paint. It was that simple, man. But no, they went for an experimental route, an off-scale route. Man, Hasbro was really whack back in the day. I mean, we're gonna take a closer look on this custom now. So as you can see, besides from the paint being black and silver, I changed the logo to match up his logo in the movie. From the front, over here, and at the back. And for comparison, I'm gonna pull up this other Spider-Man figure so you can see the difference in the logo. See? It's much more wider and ominous on this symbiote suit one. Yeah, I also want to talk about on how I did this figure. This figure was actually a revision of my first attempt on doing a symbiote Spidey, but by custom, I mean just a lazy repaint. I just painted the figure, the original figure, black. I just painted the figure black, just added the silver webbing, and it was a brighter silver back then. It was so lazy. It was done in like under 4 hours, 6 hours, under that time. But then since I didn't do any prep work, the paint started to rub everywhere. Like the paint started to rub on the joints over here, and you could see it on the ankles and on the neck. So it wasn't that good. So that's when I decided, like, oh man, I can't live with this. Wow, big word. I can live with this. I need to make this better. I need to make this figure better. So that's when I decided to get back to square one. So I took the figure, removed the logo using a hobby knife. I'm gonna be using the other Spider-Man as an example. So I cut the legs on the logo, the upper legs, so that I would be able to sculpt on it. I removed it using an X-Acto knife, and I sanded off the joints over here, the shoulders. As you can see, it's much more deeper here, but that's better because like no paint would rub off that. And I also sanded the neck joints, the neck hinges over here. I sanded those down. I sanded also this neck, and I sanded the elbows, the knees, and the ankles over here on the feet. I also sanded down parts on the butt. Oh, also the joints over here in the legs. So yeah, I sanded down joints to prevent paint rub. I also sanded here in the hands and on the fingers. And after I sanded all of those, I stripped down the paint because yeah, since it was a previous black suit custom, I needed to strip down the paint, or else there would be paint buildup and that would lose the details, and also it would be less stable. The paint would be less stable. So I used I actually used lacquer thinner, but just very little. So I carefully removed them, not using too much because lacquer thinner may eat plastic, but luckily it didn't eat plastic here. So I removed the paint on the head and on the chest and other parts that I think needed to be removed. So after that, I bought non-sag epoxy, and I made epoxy putty using flour, and I mixed the two parts together, and I carefully sculpted the legs over here using reference. Of course, I use references from promotional posters and other video game pictures. I also did that at the back. Oh yeah, I also removed the legs over here, the top legs, and added the sculpt. After the sculpting, I sanded it off to flatten the top to make it more uniform to the other legs, so it's flat. As you can see, it's uniform looking. After that's all done, I double checked the joints. I sanded more parts where I would think it would hit, so I sanded down the ab parts over here, yeah, and some over here on the crotch area. After the sanding is done, I cleaned the figure, cleaned it thoroughly, made sure there was no dust. I just used a clean cloth and alcohol. Some people use soap and warm water. You can do that too, but I was impatient. I don't want to wait for it to dry off, so I just used alcohol and wiped it off. And then to paint it, I used primer gray, but just little coat of primer gray. I think it was just two very light coats. Two very light coats to cover areas. Even like on the first layer, I covered this area, and then I used a hair dryer to speed up the paint time. After it dried, I moved the joints. I exposed the other parts that weren't covered by the primer. And I spray painted it again, very lightly. You don't need to make it super gray. It just needs to have a layer to have paint stick onto it. So I let it dry for about an hour. I also used the blow dryer to make it dry faster, and then after that I just applied thin coats of black acrylic, multiple thin coats. I started on the torso and on the crotch, then the hands and the neck, and going up to the head, and I let those dry. Made sure I was taking my time to let it dry and go to the next portion, and then taking my time to paint all inside the joints, making sure there's no gray primer that's exposed. Also made sure my paint is watered down and thin so it wouldn't thicken up. After that, I just painted the legs, I just painted the legs to the feet, going to the joints, of course, inside. Luckily, the acrylic that I used, they dry fast, so I just let it stay for like 10 minutes using hair dryer as well. And then that's where I started painting the lines using like a fine brush. I custom mixed silver and I added gunmetal to it so it wouldn't be that bright for the lines. And on the logo, it's actually brighter. I used a brighter silver with less gunmetal so it would pop out more. Even on the back, I used a brighter silver on it. And on the eyes, I started with the base of white with a little silver. But then I thought, man, the eyes were too white, so I mixed silver and white to make it a much more brighter silver. And I made sure it's watered down, so I applied a watery coat over here and let it dry. It's important, based on my experience, to make it watery so that when it dries, it naturally forms a smoother surface on it. After all those details, I used a clear coat using Boston spray. I sprayed 2 thin coats of Boston spray with intervals, like 10-minute intervals, and using blow dryer to let it dry on each coat. And after that, I let it cure for about half a day, I guess. I think it's half a day before I started taking this video. So that's about it. I would let it cure. Personally, I would let it cure more, but I'm excited and I want to pose this guy around. So yeah, that's how I did this Spider-Man 3 Tobey Maguire symbiote suit custom. It has been a very nice experience for me, and this might be my first official custom that I actually put effort into, like sanding all the joints and stuff instead of a repaint. This is actually more of a more serious custom. And I had fun. I wanted this figure for so long, man, and this is like the dream figure. And I know most of you can relate, being Spider-Man fans. I know you wanted I know you wanted to make this figure for so long, to have this figure. And fun story, back then when I was young, and as I said, when this came out in the theaters in 2007, and there were no figures for him, only the bad ones. I took my old Tobey Maguire figure from Spider-Man 1, similar to this one, and just painted him black with a with a marker, with a Sharpie, and it kind of lasted long. It smelled really bad though, because Sharpie smells really bad. And imagine me covering this guy up black, only black. I didn't cover the eyes as far as I remember. But yeah, it was kind of brown too, because like Sharpie isn't black, but it has some kind of brown tint on it. So yeah, it's a fun memory. One might argue that may be my first custom ever. It's a black Spider-Man, and now we're back here making this. So yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you like this video and my custom, because I really enjoyed it, and I wish you did enjoy it too. And so yeah, leave comments down below if you have any questions, and if you want to do this, go for it, dude. It's a fun project. It's a fun, simple project. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and maybe subscribe. Yeah, I'll be putting up mostly Spider-Man content, I think, figure content. So that's about it. Bye.